Remember when I told you guys that there are going to be some really interesting headlines regarding the Joker leading up to its release next week? Well, guess what?
It already started.
It's already started. So the media is already sort of on the offensive over the Joker movie. We did a video the other day talking about how Joaquin Phoenix actually walked out of an interview because we had a reporter asking him a very loaded question.
Well, now we have the director and Joaquin Phoenix speaking out about how it's not their responsibility to please everyone.
And the reason they're doing that is because you're getting ridiculous headlines like this one from Vice. Joker is a terrifyingly realistic window into white terrorism. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in this episode of Clownfish TV. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. I think we hit 63,000 subs this week. Hoping for 100,000 by the end of the year. Make Geeky's Christmas merry.
Merry Christmas. Oh, and then make sure you share too, because I don't know if notifications are going out. So share!
They did some
spread the word.
Stupid update last night where everybody's subscribers disappeared, and right after that, our notifications stopped working.
Yes,
so this is
make sure you're subscribed and notified.
This is probably YouTube trying to get rid of the wrong kinds of channels.
We're not wrong. We just report the news. Anyway.
We're not wrong. We're always right.
No.
No. So, okay, this coming from comicbookresources.com. Joker, Phillips and Phoenix. Todd Phillips being the director, Joaquin Phoenix respond to concerns the film could be dangerous.
Right.
While the build-up to director Todd Phillips' DC film Joker has been filled with anticipation, it's also been filled with controversy. Some critics and commentators have raised concerns that the gruesome film could inspire more violence in an already tumultuous era. Phillips has now addressed these concerns, explaining he considers them to be unfounded. Furthermore, he made a point to clarify what exactly Joker is trying to say. Again, incel violence is horrific.
Violence is always horrific, but, you know, they didn't stop making Batman movies after the theater shooting. They didn't stop, you know, people are going to do bad things, and it doesn't matter what movies. If that's the case, then you know, and these are the same people who are mad about them blaming video games for violence. You can't blame video games for violence, but you can blame this. You know, you can't just cherry pick what, you know, you want to blame what you don't. If you're going to blame one, you have to blame them both, you know? But I think if someone's disturbed, they're going to do bad things no matter what you do. It could have been a book that triggered them. It could have been a game. It could have been a conversation. If anything comes away from this, I'm hoping that they realize that mental health issues need to be addressed, and we need more support and help for people with mental health issues in America.
There we go. That's
my point I want to make. Go ahead.
Mama, don't let your kids grow up to be jokers. That's
right.
Okay, so I really think there have been a lot of think pieces written by people who proudly state they haven't even seen the movie and they don't need to.
That's exactly true, you know?
Phillips told IGN, I would just argue that you might want to watch the movie. You might want to watch it with an open mind. The movie makes statements about a lack of love, childhood trauma, lack of compassion in the world.
I agree. There is lack of compassion in the world.
I think people can handle that message.
I think they can too, and I think it brings up a good discussion, like what can be done to, you know, stop people from getting to the place where they feel like they have to behave, you know, to act out in this way.
Yeah. From there, the director went on to criticize the prospect of making judgment calls on behalf of others. It's so, to me, bizarre when people say, oh, well, I could handle it, but imagine if you can't. It's making judgments for other people, and I don't even want to bring up the movies in the past that they've said this about, because it's shocking and embarrassing when you go, oh my God, Do the Right Thing. They said that about that, you know, blank, insert that movie too. They did. I remember there was a whole discussion about Do the Right Thing. There have been discussions. American History X was another one. You know, and they're tough movies to watch. They have very complicated messages, but it is insulting to the audience, because my thing is, like, if somebody is crazy and they're prone to doing horrific things, it's not because of a movie. It's because they were already
Well, they're saying
damaged.
that it's not because of that, but this might, you know, to empower them to do things. And it's like I said, it could be this movie, it could be a book, it could be, you know, The Color of the Sky that day.
Why this movie and not Suicide Squad?
Yeah, exactly.
We had the Joker in Suicide Squad. Now, he was pretty cartoony.
Well, why this movie and not the one with Heath Ledger?
Oh, Dark Knight?
Dark Knight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had afterwards with the Dark Knight Rises, they had an incident, but nobody... I don't know.
Kept them putting pencils in people's eyes and stuff. No one was like worried that people were going to go crazy and slap people with pencils.
People are so... I mean, this is it. And I wonder if some of what's going on now, and again, this is just my armchair opinion, is that because we're constantly not challenging people. We're simplifying everything. We're telling people what to think. We're not letting people think through and work through their own problems. That we see things crumbling like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like we don't challenge audiences anymore. We basically preach to them.
Gosh, some of these people saw the 80s shows we grew up with. They would have shit.
Yeah, I mean, you look at even PG movies, even PG-13 movies back in the 80s had some pretty tough messages. Kids actually got hurt. They actually pointed guns at kids, but you really had to think about it. The books we read as kids, we joked before that the books they made us read as kids more often than not involved a kid or a dog dying, usually in a horrific fashion, sometimes both in the same book.
Right. I swear to God, there was like a time frame where they were all competing to who could write the most horrific, terrible, sad, tragic book to make kids read. And they still make them read them.
And we had to read them, but we also read those books, and then we had discussions in class about what the books meant. And there are some pretty tough books that I read when I was a kid. And the purpose, is entertainment, but the purpose is also to get you to think critically.
I think
and people don't want that anymore.
But I think that's why we're so stuck in this myopic generation of ideas and stuff now that's a very myopic and me. And they say about lacking compassion. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you aren't put in a position where you have to think about how others would act. Right. How you see somebody act badly and you understand, and you have an understanding of why they did that. We're not allowed to see that because you might turn into that. But then meanwhile, by doing that, all you're doing is covering over problems that never get resolved, and then you keep brushing aside the people who need help, where you might have noticed that someone needed help had you known to look for these things. I'm not saying that's what this movie is. I'm just saying that I think there's a when we were kids, we had compassion because we were shown things that might have been a little bit thought-provoking, but then you would have the compassion going forward. You'd have a life lesson going forward. Now it's just all pee parties and
And the media tells you what to think. They tell you what you should feel. They tell you what your opinion should be. They tell you what you should think.
If you don't agree, you are a bad person. Usually an incel or a misogynist. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or you're married.
Yeah,
either.
I'm like, these headlines on these blogs, they're so ridiculous, and I think that they're calling it out. So this Todd Phillips continues, to me, art can be complicated, and oftentimes art is meant to be complicated. If you want uncomplicated art, you might want to take up calligraphy, but filmmaking will always be complicated art. Joaquin Phoenix, and I agree with him 100% on this, who plays the Clown Prince of Crime, he said, well, I think that for most of us, you're able to tell the difference between right and wrong. And those that aren't capable of interpreting anything in the way that they may want to. Wait. I think what he's saying is you can, if you're not able to tell right from wrong, you can take anything and make it wrong.
Right.
Well, here he's talking about, people misinterpreting the lyrics from songs. They misinterpret passages from books. You can look, did we ban the Beatles because of the Manson family? Helter Skelter. Did people misinterpret the Bible all the time?
Right.
And they do horrible things in the name of God, So yeah, I agree. I don't think it's the responsibility of a filmmaker to teach the audience morality or the difference between right and wrong. To me, I think that's obvious. So he said that he touched upon the idea that people potentially fueled to commit real-life acts of violence by a film like The Joker. I think if you have somebody that has that level of emotional disturbance, they'll find fuel.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is what we've been saying. They'll find fuel anywhere. I just don't think that you can function that way. The truth is, you don't know what is going to be the fuel for somebody. It might very well be your question. It might be this moment, right? But you can't function in life saying, well, I can't ask that question for the small chance that somebody might be affected by it. I wouldn't ask you to do that. So basically, he's saying we can't go through life sanitizing everything and walking on eggshells in the off chance somebody might be offended.
I think the fact that they do sanitize everything is actually causing a lot of the problems, because I think it gets to the place people just don't feel that they can express themselves for fear of retribution, and I think that they repress it, and then when they snap in an epic fashion.
Yeah, I think it's, people are, they're not being conditioned to be able to handle reality. I think we live in such a bubble now that everything is safe, everything is wrapped in bubble wrap.
The word triggered, oh my gosh, it's so funny because the word triggered wasn't supposed to be meant to be used this way, but like there's so many people that are just like, you're triggering me, trigger warnings for everything, trigger, and it's like, not be mean, but to grow up a little bit, because you know what? In the real world, there are a lot of people who have different opinions than you. There's a lot of people who are different than you. They're different gender, different religion, different race, different whatever, and they might believe different things than you. And you know, and sometimes you can find common ground if you stop being so triggered for 5 seconds and talk about it. Sometimes having hard topics like a film like this could actually bring up teachable moments that could lead to better, you know, conditions for people that need help. You know, I mean, do I think it could happen? Yeah, I totally think it could happen that someone could watch this movie and go shoot people. I honestly do. But that could happen, like he said, for anything.
Somebody could watch Hannibal Lecter and decide that they want to try eating somebody. You know,
fava beans,
because they're yeah, right.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Okay, so you know, I'm just saying they're very selective, and I'm just like, why this movie when we had the Joker in Suicide Squad 2? Mm-hmm. You know, I think because this one is a more realistic look at the Joker.
Well, that one could be argued about the unhealthy, abusive relationships that women and men have, that women get into. It's like people that are obsessed with putting Jareth and Sarah together from Labyrinth. It's like, no, that's an abusive relationship. That's not something you should, you know, strive to have. Yeah. And that's what came out of Suicide Squad, was these people like thinking that the Joker and Harley Quinn together like that was the best thing ever. And it's like, no, that's actually should open the discussion of why this is a bad relationship, but it did the opposite. But no one said anything about that.
Yeah, it's just nuts, and they admit, like, it's supposed to be, this movie is supposed to make you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It is more of a character study. It said, you know, Joaquin Phoenix says it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for all of us. I think we're aware of these issues and we're concerned, and I think that's why we talk about it. I don't think that we can be afraid to talk about it.
Exactly, that's the problem. People are afraid to talk about it. I think people just don't know what to do about it, so they shy away from it.
Nobody is asking, everybody has armchair opinions on, you know, what the cause is, but they're dancing around the issue. Like, why are we having, when, you know, and you can talk about guns or whatever you want, you know, your position on that or whatever. When we were kids, we worked it out with our fists. Yeah. No, I'm just saying, and you know, nobody felt the need to resort to that. And I think, you know, like you were saying, I think sometimes because we become so sanitized, we become so, like, it's almost like
want to desensitize too from other entertainment, you know?
Right. And I think just society in general, like, I almost feel like we're not allowed to be human anymore. We've got to be these perfect little robots that say and think the right thing at all times, or we're shamed out of society, we're shamed out of careers, we're shamed out of...
Well, it's not like the Amish. I mean, if you leave or you don't, you know, follow the way, you're shunned, and you know, that's it, you're shunned. And that's what I feel like it is. It's like people don't want to be kicked out of their groups. They don't want to say something like, hey, you know, Marvel sales numbers are down, could that be a problem? And then how your friends block you and not speak to you again, like happened to us. But you know what I'm saying? Right. It's like, sometimes you have to speak up.
And look how ridiculous it's gotten, though. I mean, for people to be that upset about pop culture, you know, we talk about this all the time, like it's become this battleground when it used to be a release from the everyday life. But the problem is
none. Everything is an argument about politics. Everything.
Yeah, but there is no real life anymore. I almost feel like we've got this this new coat of paint. Look how nice everything is now. We've spray painted a rusty car, but it's still like rotting underneath, and nobody's addressing the fact that the car, and I know this is a really stupid analogy, but like the car actually needs body work. It needs work. You can't just throw a fresh coat of paint on it and say, look,
it's
we
fine.
fixed it. We fixed it.
But underneath, it's like falling apart.
It's rotting underneath.
Because, you know, it needed to have something done a little more drastic than body paint. So I'm like, here's the thing. If it opens discussion, I think that's important, because I think it's very important that we need to find out what the cause of this is and address the cause, instead of just, like, you know, fighting about stupid things that don't matter.
Yeah, and he's not going to answer it. And good on Joaquin Phoenix, because there's nothing you can say in this situation.
That's right.
If people are looking to lynch you, and that's what these people do, and you have to understand, a lot of these journalists that work for, you know, outlets like this, they're looking for that gotcha moment.
They want clicks.
They want clicks. They want you to say the wrong thing, because they want, you know, endless articles about you. They want you, and they know they're going to take your words and they're going to twist them. So Joaquin Phoenix basically says we can't be afraid to talk about it. So I understand why you asked the question, But I think the same way that you feel that you need to ask that question and engage in the conversation this way, I think that's how I feel as an actor. And that's all I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And if it were me, I would have walked out of that interview and I would have stayed out. I would have been like, you know what? I see what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. But they talked him into it, because then it would have been like, Joaquin Phoenix is a horrible, toxic male. He walked out of that interview and he never came back. How rude. Mm-hmm. You know, he's hiding, so he must feel,
it's like,
is he all right?
I think everybody, you can relate to somebody in your life. Somebody in your life that deliberately keeps pushing your buttons, and then when you snap because you get tired of it, you're the bad guy. And that's kind of what they keep, it is anymore. It's just, especially with the internet and social media, it's just how many buttons can I push to people snap? And then I can say, see, the other side's crazy because they snapped. And it's like, but I think people need to learn to be kind. I think they need to learn to be more compassionate. And people think I'm mean. I'm actually not. I'm actually, not at all. I just get tired of shit. But it's like, people need to be kind. And they need to understand that people have issues, and they need to find solutions, and we need to do more to help others instead of just being like, basing everything on politics.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just gotten crazy now. It doesn't matter what you say. So people are saying less and less. Just really interesting. I saw this is related. One of multiple executives, female executives at DC, came out and said that she supports the Joker. And she was president of DC Entertainment from 2009 to 2018.
Well, that can't be true, because women just now have become into positions like the last 2 or 3 years. She couldn't have been there as a president of DC Entertainment from 2009 to 2018, because women only now, thanks to people like Noel Stevenson and stuff, women are just now matter in entertainment. Just now. Just last 2 or 3 years.
Women have never worked in comics. Jeanette Kahn, who was in charge of DC during its most prosperous time in the modern era. She was in charge of DC when Watchmen and The Dark Knight came out. Dark Knight Returns. It was on her watch.
Thank God. Just the last 3 years, people have, that women and marginalized people are just now included in comic books and things like that. Because it never happened before the last 3 years.
Yeah, so I think people are getting tired of it. They're getting tired of it. It is a movie, and it doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter what the source material is. I mean, again, Beatles was misused, and it would be horrible. I have to admit. I mean, you look at like what happened with PewDiePie, and to have somebody invoke your name while doing horrendous things,
that'd be awful.
I can't imagine that. Don't anybody, please, for the love of God, don't. But I'm just saying, it doesn't mean that PewDiePie was responsible. It doesn't mean the Beatles were responsible. It doesn't mean that the Joker's responsible. It means that there are sick people out there who are going to do sick things, and you don't know what is going to set them off. But we can't all go through life walking on eggshells in the off chance somebody might do something horrible.
Just by walking on eggshells, you might trigger someone to do something horrible, because they just feel like they can't speak their mind, and if they could speak their mind, they'd feel some sense of release, but they don't get any, so they just snap. I have to, and again, this is just my armchair opinion on things, and I'm not, I'm just gonna say, just as a guy who grew up in a different era, and as a dad, and as somebody who got into a lot of fights when I was a kid, I think that guys now, men now, boys now, are basically not allowed to blow off steam. And I'm not talking about horrible behavior. I don't necessarily think punching people is blowing off steam.
No, but I'm saying I almost feel like we live in this very sanitized world where we're not allowed to vocalize.
Especially if you're a white guy. I mean, I'm just going to say it.
And again, this is just my personal opinion, because I look at the difference between how I grew up and how Squid King grew up. And, everybody's got, like, look, you can only pretend to be perfect for so long. And you're eventually going to...
I don't think this is a guy thing. As a woman, too.
I think it's everybody in society.
I think kids are just overwhelmed. Because when we were kids, we would go home and we do our homework, and you talk to your friends on the phone or whatever, or you play games or whatever. But you didn't have the internet, and and the constant. These people, they said these kids are having these meltdowns, and there's so many kids that end up suicidal or having breakdowns, and it's because of the weight and the load that's put on them now, and the fact they can't escape bullying. Like when you're a kid, you go home and you can escape it. Now you get it on the internet too, and they can target your phone, or they can target you in different ways, or they can just take a picture of you at a friend's house, and that somehow, when it used to be like 1 or 2 people see it, now the whole world can see it. So it is a lot different now, and I feel bad for kids, because I think bullying times 100 now, and it's just, there's things need to be changed. We do need changes.
I think we need to stop
pretending. We need to call attention to what the problems are, not pretend they don't exist.
The problem is that what's going on is I think that the people are getting lost in the shuffle, because what happens is every horrible thing that happens becomes a cause for one side to fight against the other side. Meanwhile, the real people,
victims, get lost.
Right. And that's what I have a problem with. Like, we're not addressing the root cause. We need to figure out, like, what is actually going on. Why has society gone batshit crazy over the last decade or two?
What could be done to help the situation?
Right.
And I think being kind is one of the easiest, quickest things you can do. I mean, is it going to stop somebody from doing something bad? No, not necessarily. But I think just trying to be kind is a huge deal. As this is your internet mom talking, I think it's easy to get hard and cold, and don't let that happen to you. People have,
I'm gonna say, I mean, this sounds, again, this is going back to my feelings on how fake society has become. And superficial. People we haven't learned empathy. We haven't learned to be actually nice. People are cattier and meaner now. Even the people who are trying, and we see this on the internet, the people who are supposedly, quote unquote, the good guys are some of the meanest SOBs you would ever meet. It's all about appearances. It's all about putting a nice coat of paint on a rusty car. But the reality is they're damaged too. It's almost like everybody has become like, they want their Instagram life where everybody's projecting this perfect exterior,
Or they're like being very myopic.
Right.
In their life. And, when we were kids, they had those shows, but that's because they were made you think. It didn't teach you empathy.
Yeah, and now it's like we're bombarded, and it's so weird, because I feel like on one level we're like, okay, we're this global community now. Everybody gets news and information and whatever from all over the world, different cultures, whatever.
But are we not interacting with people?
We're not actually. It's all on a superficial level.
Yeah, we're not out there, interacting with people like we used to.
No, we're not. Like, we're seeing people from all over the world on our screens, but we don't even know who our neighbors are. Right. We don't even talk to them. We don't know, but we're seeing pictures of people and causes from all over the world. But I think there's a disconnect, really, because the people that you're talking to or talking about or whatever are just as real on your phone as watching a TV show, and I think those lines are blurred. There is no,
that's why I said desensitized.
Yeah, there's no connection anymore, and I think that's the root cause. The root cause is, and it's easy to hurt a lot of people when you don't see them as being real people anymore.
Right. That's what they were saying. They said there's a lot of depression going on in younger kids and stuff, or people in general, because they don't know how to interact with others anymore, other than being online. And when you're just a screen jockey, a keyboard jockey behind a screen, and you don't see these people face to face, it's so easy to hurl insults and say nasty things. That's one of the reasons the one person I really don't like, but prior to them doing the show they ruined, was because of the things that came out of their mouth on Twitter. So,
but yeah, and that's the thing too, because really the mindset, I mean, I know this people are going to hate me for this, and I'm not saying that they're the same thing, but the same root cause that causes people to go do horrendous things, acts of violence, horrendous things, I think is the same root cause that causes people to go out onto Twitter and try to, for some self-satisfaction, get people removed from their jobs, gang up on people and bully them, because they don't have any connection in real life to real people. They don't have any empathy. They don't have any forgiveness. They don't understand what it is to be human anymore. We don't understand.
Everything's just a cause.
Right, that people do screw up. Some people screw up royally, right? But everybody's going to screw up, and everything is about cause.
Even apologies aren't even accepted anymore.
No,
people
they're not.
Apologize and they're genuine. Well, too bad you already did wrong, so you're banned forever. And it's like, and sometimes they didn't even do wrong. It was just that because one person didn't like it, they're banned forever. So anyway, we gotta wrap this up though.
I know. But, yeah, I was just gonna say, how many people go through life making decisions based on how they think it's gonna play on social media?
Well, that's true.
You know, how many upvotes? Oh my God, look at this coffee. I just bought a coffee. How many upvotes am I going to get for this coffee?
I'm not going to say. My coffee was judging me the other day, and I got a lot of likes on that.
Your coffee was sad because you don't talk to it in person.
It was judging me, or it was depressed. I can't tell which. It needed meds. But,
so,
you know.
It's okay. It's sad coffee.
It was sad coffee. I had angry coffee the other day, too. I almost took a picture, but I decided not to. But it was scowling at me a couple days ago.
So I think this actually could be a ridiculously important movie to open conversations up, because something is wrong. Because for all of our being aware of, you know, the toxicity and the violence and whatever, we sure aren't putting a cork in it. It's actually, you know, speeding up. It's snowballing. And
censoring everything isn't the answer.
That's not
either.
the solution. That's not the solution.
It's like, you know, prohibition didn't work. I'm just saying, it's not a solution. It just, you know, it's just putting a coat of paint on something that's still going to be rusting, and it's going to rust through eventually. So can we wrap this up? Because we're going very long. We have to go take the kids to lunch. So
okay, so we're gonna wrap this one up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, unsolicited opinions, and rants here on Clownfish
And you don't
TV.
have to agree with us.
You don't have to agree.
And that's completely fine. And you can agree with us, and that's fine too. And we still like you either way, because, you know, that's what real people do. You know, you understand there are different people than you, and that's okay.
You have conversations, and you can agree to disagree, and you can have a conversation and try to work through your differences without
learn something.
Or learn something. You know, there we go.
There you go.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up.
Yep.
Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.